Short and sweet episode today. We're talking about limiting beliefs and what it means to have a growth mindset. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Hard to Kill podcast, the go-to podcast for military, LEO, and EMS professionals, sharing ideas and experiences from around the world to make you hard to kill. Here's your host, Dave Morrow.
Today I want to make this short and sweet episode for a few reasons. Reason number one is I am changing to a new podcast studio. So I do not have all my fancy gear set up as we speak. So you can probably tell in the audio quality, I am not using my normal microphone. With that said, next week I'll be broadcasting from my new studio with all the fancy bells and whistles. So I'm really excited about that. So I'll be posting about that shortly and the progress as to how it's going to look and what new fancy gadgets I guess I'm going to be deploying there for the podcast. All that to be said is that the goal here is to not only make my environment more comfortable, but for you to have a much better listening experience. So we're up in the game on the Hard to Kill podcast to start representing that 5%, of podcasters around the planet that I now belong to. Top 5%. If you didn't see that post, I did it last week. It was pretty humbling. The Hard to Kill podcast is in the top 5% of global podcasts. Really, really pumped about that. And that's all because of you. So thank you. So today I want to touch on limiting beliefs and growth mindset. Now, the reason why I wanted to go over that today is because I was at the gym and I was working out, and they always have the news on. And there's no audio, obviously, but I find it's annoying. I don't like the news, period. I don't like the news on, especially when I'm at the gym. I like to be focusing on my workout and not about the world's problems. But it's inevitable that I'm going to read the highlights, the headlines, right? It's very hard not to glance, and it's just on repeat. I know the gym likely gets some cut to have the news on. It's part of the revenue model. I get that. I'm not upset at the gym at that, but I just don't like it. If I had my own gym, there'd be no news. Just deadlifts. Anyways, one headline that I saw was from Dr. Tam here in Canada, who's our, head of, is she? I don't even know what her actual role is, to be honest. She's just the one I've seen on TV since the start regarding the pandemic. Just sullen face, constantly saying, wear a mask, get your vaccines. It's just, I've had enough. I had enough a year and a half ago. And now it just seems like we're moving into the absurd, because her statement lately was, make sure to get a booster, make sure to wear your mask. Now, I'm not saying there's no merits to that, but after 2 years of doing this, you can't come up with any better statement than get a booster and wear a mask. We're not stupid. I'm not stupid. I've done my shots. I still got COVID. My buddies have gotten shots. They've gotten COVID twice. We're all young men. I don't know a single person that has gotten gravely ill from this. Not even my parents, who are in their 70s. To keep on using this same mantra all the time is an example of a fixed mindset. Now, I want to contrast that with a growth mindset. So clearly, a lot of our governments are stuck in a fixed mindset, because a fixed mindset, what it does is it doesn't allow you to embrace a new way of doing things, or seeing that there is a potential for incorporating new ideas and accepting that you can grow into these new ideas and actually become better. Additionally, having a conversation with just one of my clients not too long ago, actually today, and discussing the want, his desire to become an elite soldier, part of CANSOF. And we've been working together for well over a year now. And in his mind, he's still toiling with the idea, like, am I ready? Am I ready? Am I ready? And I think absolutely, physically, he is good to go. And it's ensuring that you have that growth mindset, that like you just haven't become an operator yet, is an important concept of this growth mindset. So a fixed mindset would be something to the effect of, in the context of, let's say, wanting to, let's say, become fitter or become a member of CanSoft. Well, you know what? I don't know. I just have a really hard time getting strong. I don't put on weight, or I don't easily add strength. Maybe, you know what? I'm just going to finish up XYZ, school first, get a job first, maybe get a house. And so you fix yourself with this idea that maybe I can't, maybe that this isn't a possible avenue. And so you don't grow, because you haven't accepted the fact that if you put the work in, and if you accept the fact that you can do it, you will likely end up doing it. And this is a technique that we used when I was teaching, and especially with students trying to learn math at a young age. Math tends to be like the bane of every student's existence, especially if they had a crappy experience in elementary school. Going to high school, where it starts getting a little bit harder, those insecurities can compound, and you get to feel that you're dumb. And so you label yourself, and that is the epitome of fixed mindset. I am not good at math. Okay, so you've accepted that this is a limiting belief. I am not good at math. So therefore, to get a success is going to be significantly harder, because you no longer believe that you can be good at math, when in actuality, everybody can be good at math, right? Unless you have a serious cognitive deficiency, everybody can learn math. That's a given. I've seen it. So typically what I would do is, if a student was having trouble with, let's say, algebra, it's tough, right? You got variables in there. Maybe you have trouble with algebra still. It's okay, it's normal. But just saying, hey man, you know what? I know it's hard right now, but you just haven't gotten it yet. Just adding that "yet" at the end of your sentence can shift your mindset into a growth mindset, where you've already accepted that you will get it eventually. And 9 out of 10 times, like up until I think it's grade 7 or maybe grade 8. That's kind of the limit of where the overwhelming majority of humans like peak when it comes to mathematical knowledge. That's basically all you need. Like, can you add, divide, subtract, multiply, and do some really basic algebra? Maybe calculate some angles of a right angle triangle. You know, do some algebra there. Use your SOHCAHTOA, as we all remember from high school. You know, if you're building a structure or something to that effect, like we use in the military, the worm rule. It's literally what it is, right? It's trigonometry. So you can figure stuff out a lot easier if you accept the fact that, yeah, you know what, this is hard now, but eventually I'll get it. You know, so that goes for all things in life. And I'll just go over a few things that, you know, were limiting beliefs for me, and they are no longer. And one of them was, I'm just an NCO, so a non-commissioned officer, so a sergeant. And that was how I viewed myself for the longest time, actually, until not too long ago. Even though I did leave as a lieutenant, I still embodied an NCO. And what is an NCO, right? NCO is a manager. An NCO is somebody who organizes what the officer is trying to do on the ground, manage the manpower, and execute on the orders, ensure discipline. So it's a very managerial type position, right? There's obviously a lot of leadership there too, but not at the higher order level of things, where you have strategy and a bunch of other considerations like an officer would when making a plan. And I pigeonholed myself into that as an NCO, when in actuality, that's not the case based on my personality type. Having done psychometric testing and looking at what my personality actually is, and based on my experiences, I'm much more geared to the creative side of things. I'm much more geared to experiences, new experiences. I love new experiences. I love the unknown. I really love a bit of chaos. It fires me up, whereas most people don't. But an NCO likes controlling things, likes keeping things tight. Like the artsy fartsy type stuff is not typically what you think of when you think of like a grizzled sergeant. And that's how I embodied myself. I'm that grumpy, kind of grizzled, sergeant. And I thought that was me. And that's what I imprinted on myself. And that was a limiting belief. Once I started realizing that this was causing some issues, like not seeking out help because I can do it alone, I'm tough, I'm a sergeant, it started to break that limiting belief down. So that's not to say that sergeants can't be creative, that there aren't awesome sergeants out there that are creative and outgoing. And that's not to say at all, but for myself, that's how I envisioned what a senior NCO would be like. And that was the limiting belief that was kind of holding me back. Some other ones were like, and this one was true, and I didn't break through it, was I can't join CANSOF. So although I wanted to, I never believed that I would get there at any point. And so the limiting belief was that I'm not strong enough, I'm not fit enough, I'm not the type of guy that ends up getting selected for CANSOF. Even though I had all the signs that, hey, if I put in the extra work and devoted myself to it and burned the boats, at least I could give it a shot. But I didn't even give it a shot because my limiting beliefs were that I'm just a reservist. So you can hear that I'm just if you're doing that to yourself, that's a limiting belief. And on top of that, not only just being a reservist, but I didn't have any experience. I had not been in combat. I will not be selected. So you can see how those two things, coupled with all the other things, like, obviously being exceptionally fit, led to me just not even applying. And therefore never had a shot, because after I did get my mission, after I did do my tour, it was no longer in the cards. A, I was injured, but B, life had changed. I had a serious girlfriend. We're married now. We have kids. This is no longer on the table. So I missed my window because of my limiting beliefs. Additionally, when it comes to business, up until a few years ago, until I decided to get out there and get after it in the business world, I just thought that all salespeople were slime balls, right? What's the typical stereotype of a sales guy? Used car salesman, right? Ratty old suit that you see on TV, trying to, hustle you, shitty old used car, saying it's like it's a dream to drive. There's no issues, no worry, and then you drive it off the lot, and a few weeks later, it's a lemon, right? Or vacuum sales, door-to-door salesman, right? All these like typical stereotypes that go with sales. For me, I was like, well, I'm educated, right? I'm better than that. I went to McGill, the typical arrogant McGill student. Yeah, I felt that too, because I deemed sales to be something that an individual that can't go to university does, and was resentful to those individuals that were making good money, that had all the things that I wanted, but didn't have the education. But thought to myself, well, you know what? My education will pay off. And on top of that, like, I don't have to hustle all day. And I was lying to myself. And the limiting belief there was that I'm not the type of guy that does sales. I'm a thinker. I have influence because of my piece of paper that I have on my wall. And until I broke that down and realized, and I had some great coaches that made me realize, like, hey man, like, the world doesn't run on thinkers thinking up really good ideas. It comes down to the individual that's able to sell those ideas. And whether you're selling it for money or selling it for any other reason, let's say it's to convince politicians, where there's no actual monetary transaction, sales is one of the most important skills that human beings can have. And if you are good at it, you can rule the world. And to put that in context, right? The only way you can run a business, and my business, is it needs to make money. So therefore, you have to come to grips with the fact that you need to offer people something in return for their money. If you're not willing to do that, if you're not willing to pitch something to somebody, then you don't belong in business. And that was a hard realization. I had to understand that, yes, I am going to have to get rejected a lot. I'm going to have to refine this. I'm going to have to be seen as a scammer sometimes, or illegitimate, or not knowing what he's doing, to look like a fool in order to help as many lives that I've helped to this date. And definitely the juice is worth the squeeze. I've learned that if I weren't putting offers out there, if I wasn't selling, how would anybody ever know that I had anything to offer? how would anybody know that, yeah, hey, you can get out of pain. You can reduce your pain quite a bit. You can get fitter without having to follow the stupidities that everybody else is telling you. You don't have to have bad knees after 10, 15 years in the military or a bad back. I have done it myself. I know how to get out of it. But magically, people aren't just going to show up and be like, hey, Dave, I've never heard of anything you do, or I've never heard any pitch, but here, take my money and show me what you got. That is not how it works. And so now that I've got past that limiting belief, it's still hard, don't get me wrong. But once you get to the point where you can understand and reframe things that, hey, in order for you to be able to help, you need to be able to sell that person on the fact that you can help. Once you're at that level, once you can understand that, hey, I can provide something to the planet, now you can be of service. And that's why I'm doing what I do now. And I guess lastly, one of the most important ones, I remember saying this so often when I was a kid in high school. I didn't know what, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. You're just an idiot, right? And when, I guess it was an English class, or maybe it was back in the day, we had more religious education or whatever. But they asked, hey, what's your biggest fear? I'd always say failure, because I thought that was hard. I thought that was like, I'm a hard motherfucker. I'm scared of failing, right? In my 16-year-old brain, that made a lot of sense. That was posturing for me. That was showing to other people that, hey, I don't fail at anything. And that was a huge limiting belief, because ultimately what it does is it pushes me away from things that I could fail at, which have the highest potential for growth. And I would avoid failure like the plague. One, I guess, consequence of that was that I got crushed in university, because I had never really failed at anything up until university. I did really well in high school. I did really well in CJEP. I did okay in sports, but I never really went after it. I never really tried for anything that was just outside of my reach, because again, I was scared of failure, right? And so that comfort was great, I guess, up until I got to university. And then I started failing miserably in university, like 0.75 GPA, failing miserably. Okay. So I got the letters. Hey, Dave, like, it's cool that you're here, but if you don't bump up that GPA, like, we're kicking you out. So I got those letters, and they scared the shit out of me. And I did eventually sort my stuff out, but it took me a long time, and my GPA never recovered. I failed a lot of classes. To give you an idea, there was one class I needed to pass for my degree, my chem degree. It was analytical chemistry. McGill has a policy, you can only fail a class 4 times, and then you're not allowed to take it. And there's a grace period, like I think it's a year or 2. You just can't take it again. They're like, okay, maybe this isn't for you, like, go cool your heels. I was literally on my 4th go at this class. So I'm not a details guy. I'm a big picture guy. This course was all details. It was analytical chemistry. I sucked at it. I was really good at organic. I was good at all the other types of chemistry, but this type of chemistry, I sucked. And because I sucked, I would avoid it like the plague, because I hadn't developed that growth mindset of, hey man, like, I can accept that I have weaknesses. I wasn't there yet, but I knew I had to pass this course or I wouldn't get my degree. It was my last shot. It was my last semester. And the professor that was there was like, man, I know, like, I recognize you. I'm like, yeah, this is my 4th time taking the class. He's like, it's your 4th time taking this class? And thank God he was like, look, Dave, that just means that you're not reaching out. He's like, come to my office every week. We're going to get you through this class. And that's what I did. I said, look, I'm not failing. This is unacceptable. What am I doing wrong? And I need help. Once I did that, and I opened up and I accepted that I didn't know everything, and that because I was failing because I was too stubborn, and I had a fixed mindset on the fact that I know how to do this. It's just I need to figure a way through it on my own, where opposed to the growth mindset where I just don't know enough of this yet and seek out help. Once I made that switch, I was able to pass the course. I did all right. I didn't knock it out of the park. I think I got a C plus at the end, but I still passed. It wasn't an F. And that was just a very important learning moment for me, an important lesson, right? You can't be good at everything. And don't avoid the things that you're necessarily bad at that you have to get done just because you're scared of failure. So I guess the big lesson here is always take on those big challenges with a growth mindset. Big challenges are meant to be hard. Big challenges will likely result in failures. But even though you're failing, every time you fail, you have now incurred a lesson that you will likely never forget. The best teacher is failure, hands down. If you don't learn from your failures, you're doing it wrong. Every failure needs to be a learning experience. The expression that we have, fail faster, is something that I've seen, in military circles, but that's not the reality. That's not the reality, especially in the Canadian Armed Forces, especially at the upper echelon. It's avoid risk at all costs. And to go back to what Dr. Tam said, to continue wearing your mask and ensure you get a booster, that is case in point. Don't bring up anything new. Don't try anything new, because if you do, you may have to incur the consequences of something that may be perceived as a failure and not grow out of this situation. So I guess that's it for me. So thanks again for tuning in. Don't forget, if you want a daily WOD sent to your inbox, I'm opening up the Coach Demo's Dirty Daily WOD list. I'm going to be posting the link here. You can get your WOD every morning at 0500 hours directly from me, so that you can start your day off if you're not sure what you want to do. Kind of like the CrossFit main site, but a little bit more personalized, less cold. So head to the link that's going to be here in the description of the podcast. And if you have any other questions, comments, queries that you want to send my way, join the Discord. We've got a Discord channel up and running. We're growing it. Link is here in the description. Come join us on Discord and let us know what you think. Again, I'm loving the comments. Got a great comment today about how cool, I guess. I don't want to toot my own horn here. What's the term I want to use? How insightful, that's it, the guests are on this podcast. And I continue to invite as many of the big leaders when it comes to fitness and health and influencers here on the podcast, so that you can get your insights directly from the horse's mouth and come up with your own protocols and own ways to stay hard to kill. So that's it for me. Thanks for tuning in. Be back at it again on Friday. And don't forget, train hard, fight easy. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. You can find out more about training, nutrition, and mindset at davemorrow.net. Be sure to like us on Facebook and Instagram at Dave Morrow PT. And don't forget, strong people are hard to kill.